So I've known Tommy since 2013 and really started as just a random conference networking connection and went to get coffee from there and really started talking through some challenges I had professionally at the time. And through that, Tommy really became a mentor to me and progressively sort of went from, casual coffee to just expanding to really being a mentor, professional coach, doing a mastermind. And as a result of the mastermind work we've done together, I've really just taken off. Yeah, Tommy is all about sharing his life story and lessons learned, and is very open about where he came from and the licks he's taken and how that's professionally helped him develop. And certainly I found the more I get to my authentic story and true self, the more I take off. So it's been really interesting getting that guidance and mentorship from him and seeing how it works. I think we all have interesting family histories, and I know Tommy has an interesting one, and I have an interesting, varied one, very different than Tommy's, but family impacts who you become and who you are. And the more Tommy opened up about his experiences, the more I was able to open up about mine and really understand how much parents, brother, everybody shapes you, and how you have to get okay with what you want that relationship to be and really lead somebody in some sense there. So, for example, I had the best event I've ever had with my dad on a ski trip in February because of the work that we've done through the mastermind, and just getting to, okay, what experience do I want to have with my dad, and choose to be positive about everything. And by choosing to be positive, the whole event was positive and we had the best vacation we've ever had. But one of the key things that came out of the mastermind in the book we read was the idea of who you associate with and choosing to have positive thoughts at all times. And as a result of certain experiences through the mastermind and things that happened around it, as I mentioned, it took us close to a year or so to work our way through this book. So it's really cool to see how life changes over that time and to have time for the concepts to soak, I guess you could say. I was able to get really clear on my core values and really understand why it is that Tommy is such an amazing professional mentor, coach to me, and how all that aligns. So, for example, one clear one for me is transparency. And to the point you were making, instead of having different masks and shadows, and maybe at job you do one, home you do something else, I have one now. I'm just me, right? You get your authentic story, and people are either attracted to it or not. But by getting rid of all the masks, I have amazing followers at work now, and with my side business as well, things are just taking off because you're telling your authentic story and you're getting to communicate from a point of values. So it's very easy to understand, is this decision in line with my values or isn't it in line with my values? And if it weren't for all the work that Tommy and I had done together, I wouldn't have been clear on my values, right? We're all impacted by values. Yes, we sort of know them, right, wrong, they shape who we are. But the actual process of saying, hey, what are your top 5 or 6 values is not the easiest thing in the world. Another key value that Tommy really helped me on was financial freedom, right? I've always known kind of the having some number. I actually didn't want to choose a number intentionally. And part of this process of the mastermind was getting to what is the number you want and justifying it and why and how you're going to get there. And by realizing and doing that work, helped me realize that I'd been trying to do something and pulled into the nonprofit side of trying to do that solution, when the real me is all about profit, business, and doing well by doing good. So if it hasn't been through that mastermind effort and the work with Tommy, for all I know, I might be flopping around still saying, okay, am I doing social enterprise? Am I doing nonprofit? What am I doing? But through this work, there's been very clear rationale and clarity in terms of what I'm doing. So it's another huge benefit. So I literally met Tommy at a networking event when he was in his 3-piece suit or whatever on the tail end of getting out of corporate accounting. And it took a little while for us to meet the first time because he was jetting all over the country, handing off relationships. So it was really interesting to see him from sort of that mask, as we've been talking about, to pivoting to doing social enterprise, and the experiences he learned there of going from being a partner to being a partner, and learning who you associate with and how critical that is. So certainly saw him at the peak of his corporate career, figuring out the path into social enterprise and getting a little burned by it, returning to what he knows how to do so well, being an accountant, and then very intentionally saying, this is not an absolute hell yes for me anymore, and handing off that client list and really following his North Star and going out and becoming this amazing speaker now and learning to tell his story, because it's an amazing story, but it's not an easy story to tell. And you really have to be willing to completely open up, in some cases to complete strangers, to change their lives on stage. One of the top things out of the mastermind was this whole idea of you're in control of your mind, right? You can choose to be positive or negative. That is completely your choice. If you let other people's actions turn you negative, or if you can take them and turn them positive. And in my case, interacting with Tommy in this mastermind, it's been all about how do you turn yourself positive. Now, I will readily admit the 5 or 10 year ago Brett was not always as positive as he could have been. But as I've learned from this and become very positive through the process, it's amazing how it's opened up. So to answer your question in terms of Tommy, he's very much one of my people, and one of the few that I really let all my guard down with. So it's amazing when we're able to spend time together and catch up over dinner. There's just something about his energy in the room when he comes in. You get a big bear hug, and goes right straight to the core. What's going on in life, the good, the bad, celebrating success, learning from failure, and just continuing to be an amazing human. I certainly think of that as a catalyst moment for Tommy, where he brought together his closest friends and business mentors across a whole swath of his life. And that was the first time on stage he told his whole story. And so amazing to do that, right? You're putting your entire self out there to a room of people, maybe some who know snippets of it, but nobody who's necessarily heard the whole story. And just incredible to be there and to see what's happened since then for Tommy. That's where I think of it as a catalyst moment, because for me, having experienced it last week was the best personally and professionally for me in a long time, because of all the groundwork that I've laid as a result of the mastermind. And for me, I definitely think it was catalyst-like, in terms of all of these things colliding at the same time and taking you to a new plane that you hadn't operated on before. I think Tommy's always been amazingly honest and has this just unique ability to see through and really quickly figure out, what does the culture in the room feel like? What is the authentic person he's speaking with, or what could they be if they have their masks on, and getting to sort of the root cause of issues that are going on in a company, whether it be on the balance sheet or working with the executive leadership. And I love Tommy's line of participate in your own rescue, because I feel like a lot of the time these people have sensed something is wrong and reach out to Tommy, and then he's able to come in there and very quickly get a high level sense of what's going on, and then has the persistence and drive, passion and desire to help humans to really dig in and get to the solution. Hugely inspirational for me. Just hearing Tommy's whole story and what happened to him, his upbringing, what he's managed to conquer, getting to the pinnacle of his profession, and then sitting in a boardroom and realizing it just wasn't for him, right? That goes back to his core values, his desire to help humans, the stories he shared with me. He put himself out there on the line very early to defend people under him and to make sure that they stayed there. So he's very much a defender in that sense of, if something doesn't align with his values, he stands up, he's a leader, and he acts. And he goes after and solves for X, whatever the systemic issue is. And in that case, it was very clearly, this is not the place for me. This is not in alignment with my values. And yes, it's a big paycheck, but there's a lot more to life. So I'm going to jump and see what happens. And it's an amazing ride for him. And of course there's ups and downs. That's life. And I've seen him at some of his highest highs and some of his lowest lows. And that's also part of what's so amazing about Tommy, that he authentically shares that, and it's not masked. For me, it's been a life lesson too. And just share who you are, right? It doesn't matter the audience, just be authentic and have that human connection. And it's amazing what comes out. I've been deeply passionate about the environment forever, and I've stepped in to protect wildlife and take other actions since I was young. So for me, it's really based on the mastermind work, building up to an environmental markets entrepreneur and getting ready for my jump. I'm not quite ready to jump out the emergency exit, but I'm getting close. I feel like a lot of people do things purely based on ego, and it's all about, the biggest this, the biggest that, the best podcast. Tommy doesn't come from that perspective at all. He shares really his life lessons and what got him to where he is, and he's willing to share that authenticness through the podcast. And I was privileged to get to know Tommy before the podcasts, so it was able to see that. But it's amazing how much of it comes through in the podcast too. And I distinctly remember taking a page of notes, listening to Tommy's audio, and how much it inspired me. And that helped with the whole mastermind process. So even though I know Tommy very well, hearing that podcast, and was the early days for him too, still had a huge impact on me and helped me get to my core values and how everything's aligning for me, and just connecting all the dots and being authentic and going after being the best human you can be. So I've always been very much about active listening. And to me, it's all about systems for me to make things work, right? Schedule time, etc. And I found the system that works best after trying a couple different things is starting the morning with 5 minutes of intentional planning, of looking at, reminding yourself who the core values are, what they are, some 3 things that happened great yesterday, 3 things that you're very thankful for, something you could have done better the day before, and your top things you absolutely have to get done that day to help you structure. And I found that sort of 5 minutes of intentional journal-like activity works for me and gives me the structure I need in a way that free-form journaling, which I maybe do a couple times a year, if I really have an issue I kind of need to think through in my mind, write it out, helps me work with that. And then I also do personal development notes, as I call them, and Evernote and a variety of other things, because I've just discovered that, frankly, my handwriting's so bad that, I can then capture it. But, everything, listening to Tommy's podcast, was listening to a YouTube today of an amazing story, and it's capturing those key quotes and making sure you have them somewhere, because they all come back in a really interesting catalytic way.